What is going on, everyone? It's your boy Gsluke here for our DFS live stream for round 3 of the Zurich Classic. First off, happy Friday. Of course, heading into the weekend, which means the cut just happened. We have a good idea of where our lineups stand. And more importantly, for tomorrow, we have the best ball format. So going to see absolute fireworks out there. If you have some 6 of 6s, even some 5 of 6s this week with how low the 6 of 6 percentage is, you're going to be in the run because of how much scoring you're going to see tomorrow. So definitely a lot to look forward to there. And to go ahead and start off the stream, let's go ahead and take a look at a few of my lineups. You know, my favorite lineup where I have my a really good shot with the 6 of 6 here. So let me go ahead and share my screen after I can go ahead and bring up that lineup for you guys. And we'll just talk through the first 2 rounds to start and then hop into the preview here for round 3. So let me go ahead and share my screen for you guys. And on here, you can see the lineup I'm talking about. So this is my best lineup. Actually, it was the 100th lineup I ended up entering. So the last one that my optimizer spat out. And it actually is my highest scoring lineup. So as of right now, it's at 426. You can see, of course, it has Cantlay and Xander Schauffele in it. You would expect that. But the Sam Burns, Billy Horschel group. So, of course, you know, 2 of those stud tier ranges. And you can see it, some of those studs down low that are really carrying us. You know, Tringale and Clark, a Seifert and Lebiota, who I thought had some upside, but certainly didn't think would be my cornerstones of my top lineup. So, of course, if you have a 6 of 6 like this type of lineup in a large field GPP, you can see over here on the left, there's a 4 of 6 right there, a couple 5 of 6s. Not many 6 of 6s up here in the top 200. If I go through all of them over here on the left, you can see it's like 1 of every 10, maybe 1 of every 7 or 8 lineups is a 6 of 6. So, and that's of the top 150 out of 71,000 entries. So the site I usually use for my 6 of 6 percentage is Cut Sweats. It's down for this week because of the format. I'm assuming some of their coding is a little bit off. But even if we take a look at the top 10, I mean, first and second are only a 5 of 6. Third through fifth are 6 of 6. But even the guys that had the best performances so far weren't able to get all 6 through. So if you were able to nab one of these 6 of 6 lineups, I was able to grab 9 out of my 150. You're probably sitting at a pretty solid spot. So just wanted to start off with that. Of course, scoring here for round 3, going to be nuclear. When playing Showdown, you're going to see 400, 500 points scored potentially in Showdown tomorrow. When we hop over to the projections, you'll see I'm projecting teams for like 70, 80 fantasy points, which for a single round sample size is pretty outrageous. Let's hop into tomorrow, though, right? We're not going to just dwell on the past here for this live stream. You can see a few of you are down there in chat already. So first off, what's going on, Nick? He says if Kawa and Hovland could putt, they'd be minus 20, and I definitely agree. Assuming you were watching them in person today, ball striking was there. They put themselves to like 5 to 10 feet on literally every single hole. I couldn't make anything. So I don't want to hop into the player pool too early. They are in the pool because of the ball striking. You know, like you said, if they could putt, they'd be minus 20 right now. And an alternate shot, they're going to get 2 chances on every single hole. So I like that. And Steven Davidson is down there as well. What is going on, dude? Hopefully you guys are doing well this Friday. It's the weekend, right? Well, it's looking up and looking forward to an exciting weekend here. So let's touch on the weather, though, which for Saturday is very consistent with what we saw in the first 2 rounds. It's single digits to start the day, about 5 to 9 miles an hour of sustained winds. And then in the afternoon, it kicks up to that teen range, right? The low teens, 12 to 14 miles an hour is what we've seen over the first 2 days. And that's very consistent here on Saturday. So in terms of scoring conditions, maybe slightly easier than what we had there on Friday, just because some of the wind gusts in the morning were a little bit harder, but nothing that's going to change my modeling. The real thing that we have to focus on here, of course, is the format where we're playing best ball. We know there's going to be a ton of scoring, potentially 8 to 9 birdies on every single hole. So not every single scorecard. So we're going to have to go out there and take those guys that shoot 10, maybe even 11 under or better tomorrow. So let's hop into the player poll, start talking about it. And I know I talked about this on the DFS live stream on Thursday. This slate is going to be by far the most profitable. We're going to have people that are overreacting to what they've seen so far. And if anything, this is a pure game theory slate. We're just looking at the guys that have the highest upside per their ownership, right? It's going to be all about ownership based as compared to a player's upside rather than a player's projection versus their price, right? In the past, you'd be like, okay, what are the range of outcomes? Is it possible or is it likely that they get to their outcome? In this type of scenario, when it's a single round sample size in best ball, I mean, just think about some of the best scorers in best ball round white. Taylor Moore, Matthew Neesmith, Aaron Ride, David Lipsky, just guys you wouldn't expect to play ball. You're going to have to be willing to take those type of players here. And you can see at the bottom of the leaderboard, even down there at $6,000, there's guys I have down as a yes. Guys at $6,400, I have down as a yes. A lot of guys you're going to have to be willing to play tomorrow that you're not going to want to play, right? They're going to give you a little bit of an uneasy feeling in your stomach when you're putting them into your lineups. But based on what we saw there for round one, you're going to have to take those shots. And also what we've seen over the years at this event. So let's talk through the player pool. Nick mentioned it before. Collin Morikawa and Victor Hovland could very easily be minus 20 right now. But at the same time, they're only minus 9. They can't make a putt for their lives. Today, I counted at least 5 putts within 7 feet that they didn't make, which, there's two ways to look at that, right? Of course, the first and most obvious is that they're struggling. They can't make a putt for their lives, looking like John Rahm out there. On the other side, right, they have a ton of potential, right? If they end up cashing in those opportunities, could go out there and post something really low. Now, Collin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, they've been streaky putters in the past. They go through lulls like this all the time, and usually they break out of it. And when they do, it's when they shoot 7-8 under par on their own. And tomorrow, the fact that you have two players in a very similar circumstance playing together, and of course in a best ball format where each of them is capable of making 7 or 8 birdies tomorrow, they have a legit chance of shooting 59. Just like Xander and Cantlay ended up doing there on round one, they have that same type of upside in them. So I will be playing them there. I'm also going to be playing Cantlay and Xander Schauffele. Of course, both of these groups are going to be unbelievably chalky in the 40, maybe even 50% range in some of these higher dollar contests. I'm not going to let that deter me, though. They're plays that make a whole lot of sense. And like I said, you're going to have to differentiate down low. You're going to have to get really creative with some of those value plays. And you're going to have to hope you hit on that group that shoots 12 under par tomorrow that nobody's on, right? And that's really how I'm going to differentiate my lineups. I'm going to eat the chalk up top because these groups are all more than capable of going out there and shooting something extremely low. And in some of my lineups, I'm going to try and take 2 of them in the same lineup. So it's going to have some lineups where I'm spending up to $10,500 and $10,200 in the same lineup if I can, right? Especially if I'm taking somebody down here at $6,000, that's going to be more than doable. So that's what I'm doing up top. I'm also taking a look at Billy Horschel and Sam Burns. They're a group of elite putters. They're gaining over half a stroke per round in that category. And when you're trying to get to that 12, 13 under par potential score tomorrow, you're going to have the hot putter to do so. So I like going to those type of groups. I'm still worried about Cam Smith and Mark Leishman today. It was Mark Leishman's putting that carried them. Cam Smith got back to hitting the ball. We would expect that, right? Cam Smith, he's a stud. He's a top 5 player in the world at this point. It's pretty established. He's respected like that by his peers at the very least. It was Mark Leishman I was worried about, right? And he played better today. Good for him, right? I actually like those 2 players. Of course, Cam Smith, one of my favorite players in the world. He's top 5 for me. I like to see what I saw today, but I'm still worried about Mark Leishman, right? He really looked dreadful day one. The ball striking today wasn't really all that much better. He just made a ton of putts for that team, which was extremely valuable in alternate shot, particularly because Cam Smith, it felt like he was hitting all the approach shots. They had him hitting the approaches on the par 3s, so of course that's going to skew a lot of the approach shots his way. But even when they were, getting out of position with a Mark Leishman drive, a lot of times, of course, he was the one getting themselves out of trouble. And even when he was setting himself up, I felt like Mark Leishman was never taking advantage. So it's just, it's not the best team dynamic, whereas I have a ton of confidence in Cantlay and Xander. Of course, they're in first place. Collin and Victor Hovland are hitting the ball unbelievably well. That's extremely evident from the eye test. And Sam Burns and Billy Horschel, doing their thing as well there at minus 14. So, you're going to kind of have to nitpick up top. You can't play everyone in this $10,000 range. So they're the one group that is going to unfortunately be left out. Also leaving out Ryan Palmer and Scotty Scheffler. They haven't looked all that sharp. Really, Scotty Scheffler, is the one that doesn't look I would say both of them. So, towards the beginning of the round today, it was Scotty Scheffler who didn't look all that sharp. He was missing greens. The driver, he was missing to the left all the time. I believe on his first 4 holes, he missed all 4 of his drives to either the left side of the fairway or into the trees on the left, which is his miss. It happens when his ball's not slicing like he's hoping that it will. But Ryan Palmer, towards the end, he started to struggle. He had an eagle putt. He ended up hitting the eagle putt over the green, ended up meaning that they made par on the easiest hole on the golf course, and then also had a chip shot from right around 30 yards to get up and down for a birdie, and he hit it over the green. Just uncharacteristic stuff from Ryan Palmer. Scotty Scheffler, of course, kind of looking rusty as well. So just not a group I'm willing to get to when we have kind of for sure commodities in a group like Billy Horschel and Sam Burns. I mean, I see them shooting at the very least something like 8 under par tomorrow. Same thing with Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, and with Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland. Like I said, they have that legit 59 upside. So one of the groups you kind of have to, pick between up top. You kind of, got to exclude somebody, and that's why I'm doing that with that group. Next up is Ian Poulter and Shane Lowry. They made a ton of birdies today, but Ian Poulter is the one I worry about here. Didn't really impact them today in alternate shot, which was surprising. I did think that they might get a little bit held up because of his play, but he definitely held up under pressure. The issue is it's the same thing with Ryan Palmer and Scotty Scheffler. There's a lot of options in the middle of the 9K range that I really like. I like getting to a group like Max Homa and Taylor Gooch a whole lot. A few of these other 8K options I really like getting to, but of course, most importantly, I like spending up for two of these top tier options. I like I said before, spending up for a guy in the $10,000 range, one of these guys in the high 9K range, and then moving on from there, taking guys in the high sevens, one guy in that middle of the 6K range and rounding out your lineup. Rather than being more balanced. I just expect a ton of people. There's a huge price gap you can see. So there's $9,600 Cameron Smith. There's $8,700 Bubba Watson. And of course, then there's $8,700 Shane Lowry and Ian Poulter. A ton more people are going to go to Ian Poulter and Shane Lowry. Then are going to go to somebody like a Bubba Watson and Harold Varner III, which means at that price range, in that kind of dead zone where there's a solid $700-800 of salary in only two groups, almost all of them are going to go to the Shane Lowry and Poulter group. So I have them at 32.6% ownership right now, which might seem high, but that actually might be low come tomorrow at lock. I'm not kidding when I'm telling you guys. They might be something close to like 40-45% owned, just because it is such a dead range when it comes to salary, right? There's $300 up to a Max Homa Taylor Gooch. There's $100 down to that group of Bubba and HV3, which I don't expect to be all that popular, at least compared to some of these groups up top. So I do expect them to be extremely chalky. So kind of picking hairs there as well for why I don't want to play them. Let's move on into the chat. Let's catch up on it. Nick Marr says, I'm a 25 handicap and I cringed every putt. I'm assuming you're talking about Colin and Victor Hovland. Yeah, same thing, right? It's putts that even worse players can go out there and make, right? And they literally missed every single one. And Nick says, if one or two fall, they'll shoot 59. Yeah, I think so too. I really like their chances tomorrow. And they're solid putters, right? On the year, Victor Hovland gaining significantly with the putter. And same thing with Colin Morikawa, which last year that wasn't the case, but he's clearly taken a step forward in that category. Yeah, I'm expecting big things from him for sure. And Nick Marr says, Scotty was pissed I followed him a little while. Did you see him hit his golf bag by chance? He literally took his putter, tomahawked his golf bag. They had to blur out the audio, so I'm sure he added a little bit of colorful language there as well. Yeah, dude, he didn't look all too happy out there, so I think he's motivated to turn it around. I said that yesterday, right? I thought that he would come out here today, shoot something low because he had that motivation. Wasn't able to, just really looks rusty. So hopefully he can turn that around. I have him in my 4-round stuff. He's certainly not happy about it. We know that. And I like playing people in DFS that actually get angry when they're not playing well. So it means something, right? It means something to us when they don't play well. We're going to sweat that, right? We're going to get pissed off, all those sort of emotions when a guy goes out there and misses the cut. I want them to feel that same type of emotion where somebody like a Patrick Cantlay, he'll miss a cut, looks like he couldn't give a shit, right? He's going to go just chill on the beach afterwards. Or Dustin Johnson is the most frustrating of all. He literally won't change his facial expression. Like he'll miss a putt to make the cut and he'll just pick it up. He'll tap it and pick it up and walk off like nothing even happened. Whereas, of course, all of us at home are throwing up our arms. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit my mic here. Freaking out about everything like that. Yeah, I like when guys react to their shots. So I like a Terrell Hatton, right? I like a Billy Horschel for that reason. I know people give him crap and whatnot. But the polar opposite with guys like Cantlay and Xander Schauffele that are just stone cold killers, have no emotion on their face. That's actually what kind of bothers me, right? It's like, come on, does it mean anything to you? You're like a professional athlete, you're a competitor. Like, show that it means something to you. Anyways, rant aside, let's keep moving on here. Max Homa and Taylor Gooch looked very solid today. Day one, they looked really rusty. I mentioned that. I thought they were in a solid spot to bounce back, which they were able to. But they really did have to turn it around, and they did today. Max Homa was much more solid with his off-the-tee play, wasn't putting themselves in really bad positions. So, of course, Taylor Gooch with his solid approach play was able to take the advantage. So Max Homa did make plenty of birdie putts. Same thing with Taylor Gooch, who he's got a very streaky putter, right? He'll go hot, he'll go cold in that category. So for him to get to 59, get to something like 60, 61. They're going to need Taylor Gooch to bring the flat stick, but it was good to see Max Homa had it back today. And of course, the ball striking for Taylor Gooch was unbelievable. He had a shot from 210 yards around a tree. He had to elevate it as well. It was a firm green. It wasn't very deep, and he hit to like 2 feet. There's maybe 3 players in the entire world that are capable of hitting that golf shot, and Taylor Gooch is one of them. That's the kind of ball striker that he is. So certainly somebody I'm willing to back there. I'm going to continue to fade HV3 and Bubba Watson. Just first off, not my favorite players in the world to support, and I think they're overrated, right? First off, Bubba Watson's the most overrated player on tour at this point. He's just complete name recognition. That's why his price is where it's at. That's why people like him, right? He won the Masters back in the day. But when it comes to DFS, putting our money behind players, just far too highly priced, going to be far too highly owned. I have him at 24.5%. And if I was going to swap off of them, I'd much rather play in Ian Poulter and Shane Lowry. Like I said before, it's kind of a dead range to me. I'm just spending up in that 9K range or even that 10K range twice. So I'm not going to bother with them. There's going to be a complete fade in that range for me. But if you absolutely have to have somebody there just for lineup construction reasons, I would much rather go with the Shane Lowry and Poulter group. Moving on to the bottom of the 8K range. So this is what I mean by there's a dead zone, right? You have the $8,800, $8,700 group there, and then it just falls completely off the board to $8,300, which only $400, right? Like, oh, it's only $400. On the main slate, there are going to be 4 or 5 players priced in that $400 range, right? So it's a lot more significant than on most slates. And that is a byproduct of the fact that there's only 33 teams that make the cut here. Now, given ties, there were 38 groups that end up making the cut, 38 or 39, something in that range. So that's why there is a little bit more separation in the pricing. But for the Showdown slate, when it comes to ownership, that's going to have a huge impact, right? Because people love spending all of their salary. If they have that $400, $500, nobody's just going to play Davis Riley and Will Zalatoris and leave that $400 on the table. So if you're just looking to make a unique lineup, just leave the $400 on the table and play Davis Riley and Will Zalatoris, who for this format specifically, I absolutely love. Both are absolute maniacs. Both make a ton of birdies. Both are extremely streaky players. Do that, and I guarantee you're going to be unique, right? Like it's almost a for sure way to make sure that you don't duplicate yourself. So with the dead zones, it's going to be a little bit of an interesting slate. You know, it's not just best ball, but because there's only this many groups to choose from, it's also going to make things a little bit interesting. Let's move on a little, and also because of the cut, right? There were some groups in that range that ended up getting cut, like a Grayson Sig group. The JT Poston group ended up missing the cut. There were a few other ones. Alex Noren group ended up missing the cut. They would have been priced in that same range. So that's also why there's a huge dead zone there. Not just a byproduct of how many teams made the cut. Towards the top as well, we have Danny Willett, Terrell Hatton. They played well there on day one. They've had a lot of success in the best ball format at this event. Not so much with the alternate shot, right? Today ended up shooting even par. Even back when they finished in 11th place, they didn't do all that well on the alternate shot format. But they really do take apart the best ball. So definitely looking to support them. Benny N actually looked decent today. I was sweating my prize picks prop where I took the over on them on strokes. Did not end up working out. They had a pretty solid day. But still, you know, he's not 100%, right? You can tell that, you know, he's spraying it on the approach. He missed plenty of greens from like 130, 140 yards. The thing that was impressive with Benny N is his driving. He was hitting it like 330 off the tee. There's, I believe it's hole number 13. It's 380 yards if you take it around the dog leg. But if you go right at the green, it's like 345 yards. He hit it to right around 10 yards short of the green. There's not many players in the field that are capable of doing that. So hopefully he can figure out the approach play. He has a whole year in the Korn Ferry Tour to do so, because if he does, I think he's trending upwards. And I like to see him on tour next year. I'm 99% sure that he's going to get his tour card on the Korn Ferry Tour. He may have already done that actually with his qualifying. Just has to wait until that becomes official. Brendan Steele and Keegan Bradley, they're of course madmen that are extremely aggressive players, particularly with their approach play. So in this best ball format, I think they have the upside to get to that 10, 12 under par type of score. Brendan Todd and Chris Kirk looked good in day one as well. Chris Kirk especially is a extremely streaky player. But Brendan Todd, when he gets that flat stick working, also capable of putting up 6 to 7 birdies in a round. So that's a group that I have my eye on to go super low. Henrik Stenson, Justin Rose, not so much. Kind of worried about their upside in terms of their putting. Justin Rose hasn't made a lot of putts in quite some time. Charl and Bazane, who came through for us in Showdown today. They were one of our better value picks on the board. I liked them because of their consistency, particularly with a Bazane who's a gainer across all four major statistical categories. But when it comes to a higher upside type of format, best ball where we're looking to get to that super low score, he kind of worries me there. He's a little bit too conservative for my liking. Cameron Tringale and Wyndham Clark, boy, do I hate Tringale, but he's coming through for me this week. So can't give him too much crap there. Definitely like the results that we're getting from him there. And Wyndham Clark, a high upside player, extremely volatile with making birdies. Same thing with Tringale. So if anything, this should be the format that they play the best in. So people that I'm certainly targeting, Doug Gibb and Matthias Schwab, same story. They're only $6,800, so they're super cheap, especially compared to some of these other players. And high upside, right? Doug Gibb, one of the higher birdie or better percentage players last year on tour. This year, not so much. It's kind of fallen off a little bit, which is slightly concerning. But Matthias Schwab, in his short PGA Tour career, right, not that much of a sample size, has made a ton of birdies. And overseas, where we do have a little bit more of a sample size, he's kind of known for being a madman, being extremely aggressive. So I do like going to both of those groups. I do think they have at least some type of upside. Wouldn't surprise me if this Doug Gibb, Matthias Schwab group is kind of like that Taylor Moore, Matthew Neesmith group from day one that just goes out there and makes a ton of birdies on the day. Let's talk about Jason Day and Jason Scribner. Were they playing best ball today? Did they get the memo switched up between day one and day two, where day one, of course, they shot 6 under. Today shot 8 under par. Like, were they playing alternate shot there on Thursday? Like, I don't know. It was incredible. Obviously, they weren't. They were showing them on TV. Jason Day and Jason Scribner, by far the most impressive round of the week. More impressive than the 59 that was shot by Cantlay and Xander there on Thursday. This Day Scribner group going out there and shooting 8 under an alternate shot, just completely unheard of. Just ridiculous stuff. You don't see that very often. Unbelievably impressive, but there's going to be a ton of ownership behind them as a result. I have them at 20.6% ownership. I kind of question their upside, right? Jason Day, not that aggressive of a player. Jason Scribner, I don't really know enough about him to make any assertions, but based on what we saw today, looks like a putting specialist. I mean, the guy literally made every single putt. They were just showing them, after they were like 4 or 5 under through 4 or 5 holes, they ended up showing a lot of their round, and he was making every single putt from 15 to 20 feet. And it was at least 4 or 5 in a row before he missed one. And when he missed, it was legitimately surprising because it ended up lipping out. You were like, he finally missed one. And of course, he got back on the birdie train after that and made another 2 birdies to end the day. So just ridiculous stuff from a Jason Scribner. I don't expect that to be remotely repeatable, though, or remotely sustainable. They're clearly playing above their heads. To see somebody shoot that low of a round an alternate shot is just pretty incredible stuff. I mean, even what Wyndham Clark and Tringale did today, or even an Aaron Ryan, Lipsky, I guess Doc Redman and Sam Ryder, we had all these plays, by the way, ended up going out there and having a really solid round. It's just not sustainable, right? Like, people are going to jump on those plays. You'll see that most of those guys aren't in my player pool. There's a few of them are. It's not sustainable, right? That's just a ceiling of all ceilings type of round. And an alternate shot, a lot of that comes down to luck as well. There was a sequence today where Colin Morikawa was hitting pretty much every single iron shot, and Victor Hovland had made like 5 1-putts in a row. That's the positive end of that luck, right? Getting the quote-unquote solid end of the draw is when your iron player's hitting all the iron shots and your putter's hitting all the putts. And that's kind of what was happening today when Victor Hovland and them made the 4 birdies in a row. The same thing happened with Scribner and Jason Day, where Jason Day was just putting them in position, and Jason Scribner had the hottest putter that I may have ever seen in my entire life. He was literally making everything. It was outrageous. Even the long par putts they had for like 10 to 15 feet were center of the cup, like no doubt about it type of makes. There's a lot of luck involved with that. So as great as they played, you have to be in that situation to begin with, to take advantage of it. Kevin Kisner and Scott Brown, they're just not the highest upside play. I know that they've had a lot of success in the best ball format, but considering Scott Brown lost his tour card, I hope he plays well for my 4-round lineups, but not counting on it here for Showdown. Brian Stewart and Russell Knox, you guys know my take there on Brian Stewart, not my favorite golfer. Just in general, though, Russell Knox, not the best putter, right? And Brian Stewart, not the highest birdie or better percentage player. A little bit more consistent, precise, right? Not necessarily so aggressive, a little bit more passive of a player. That's not what I'm looking for in best ball. An alternate shot, I may consider them for Sunday, depending on their placement, ownership, all that sort of fun stuff. But not here for best ball. Aaron Ryan, Lipsky, I won't be playing. They, of course, had a solid day today. They looked stellar there in round 1, shot 11 under par. I'm worried about the ownership, right? They're at 15%. Like I just said, there's a lot of luck that's involved with shooting a good score in best ball. So perhaps they go out there, they get the wrong end of that draw. This is a volatile sport to begin with, but when we have best ball and only 33, or I guess it's 38 teams that ended up making the cut with the ties, it's going to be even more so the case. So just, if a guy's twice as owned or even 3 times as owned as a lot of the other plays in this range, just going to fade them and go to the other plays, particularly if they're guys that have some semblance of form, like a Joel Damon and Steven Yeager. I was kind of concerned about the fit, both relatively short players, but both can get extremely hot with the putter, and that's what you saw on Thursday today. Made a ton of putts, even though they weren't in position for a lot of the holes. So I like going to them there. I'm not the biggest fan of the Grace Higo group. They're another group that played well today and that is going to get a ton of steam just because of how they finished their round. Sam Horsfield and Matt Wallace. I'm scared to death of playing Matt Wallace, and I'm going to be until he goes out there and has like 2 to 3 solid starts in a row. Then I might be willing to get to him. Adam Schenk and Tyler Duncan, $6,700. Definitely willing to get there at -8. They've been playing some decent golf. They're both aggressive players, particularly Adam Schenk. Tyler Duncan kind of reminds me of a Brian Stewart, right? He's a little bit more passive, a little bit more of a precision guy than he is a power guy. But the fact that he at least has an Adam Schenk in his group who's extremely aggressive kind of makes up for it. So perhaps they're a little bit of a surprise for us, kind of like some of the groups we saw on day one. Doc Redman, Sam Ryder, another group I'm avoiding just because of the ownership. I have them at 10.8%, but might come in even higher owned than that based on what they saw on the broadcast today. They were shown for quite a bit of it. It was highly publicized how they played. Brandon Boone, Patrick Rogers, on the other hand, they're 11 under par. They're only $6,100, and they're playing some solid golf. Of course, from a skill set perspective, you have the precision guy in Woo, the power guy in Patrick Rogers. I talked about him going into the week as a very intriguing pairing, and it looks like that's coming to fruition. So I like getting there at a super cheap price tag. Also, like getting to a super cheap Chase Seifert and Hank Lebiota. They're only $6,500. Now, they're one of the higher owned plays in this part of the slate. You can see, of course, 10.8% on a Doc Redman and Sam Ryder, but a whole 7.3 on Seifert and Lebiota. And that's because a lot of people have identified them as a solid play. I know a few other big content creators this week were on the Seifert Lebiota group, and it makes sense, right? Lebiota has had success at this venue. One of the better putters, same thing with the Chase Seifert, and they have a very similar skill set. So I thought they'd play well an alternate shot. They shot 2 under today, which, not a ceiling round or anything like that, but that's more than adequate. So perhaps with their high aggression, high birdie or better percentage type of putters, they can make quite a few putts tomorrow. Kiradek, often Barnrat, Kurt Kitayama, I at least would consider them at $6,400. They're not going to be a core play or anything for me, but could have them in a few lineups, maybe 1 to 2. James Hahn and Kevin Chappell at $6,400. Just not really. I'm just not taking a shot on them, right? This is an extremely volatile slate. So if you want to take a shot on them just for the heck of it, by all means, but there's not any reason I could talk you into playing them. There's just nothing there. The shots gained metrics don't look very good for either. Mark Hubbard and Ryan Brehm, they looked pretty solid today. They made quite a few birdies in the alternate shot format. I believe shot 4 under on their back 9, which was one of the better back 9s. The front 9 today played much more gettable than the back 9 when it came to scoring. So that was impressive, but not sure I can get there. They're $6,700, which of course, starting the week, they were like $6,200. Now they're $6,700. I'm not sure why they went up in price. Whereas a group like Curtis Thompson, Nick Hardy, they went down in price after a really solid day today, ended up shooting 3 under, didn't have their best stuff there on Thursday, only took it to 6 under par, but that's why they're only $6,200. That's why they're going to be starting a little bit earlier in the morning. So perhaps when the greens are a little bit softer, a little bit more pristine because there's not any scuff marks on them, they can get the putters working, because for Curtis Thompson and Nick Hardy, both of them really solid ball strikers. Just got to get it rolling with the flat stick. And if they can, could take it super low. Camilo Villegas and Kyle Stanley, another group of ball strikers that just has to turn around with the putting. And in my main lineup, like I showed you guys before, I have Camilo Villegas and Kyle Stanley. They were like 0.3% owned or something like that in the large field GPP. Hopefully they can do something special. So it's a little bit of a homer pick why I have them in here at $6,400, but very similar to the Thompson Hardy group. I'm going to put themselves in plenty of positions to score, just about whether they can capitalize on them. And Dylan Wu and Justin Lauer at $6,100. I'd even consider playing them. I mean, just they're Corn Ferry Tour players. They're used to having to take it to 20, 25 under par to win a golf event. So they're programmed to go out there and just fire at these pins. Just, not the highest pedigree players, right? So they're not going to be my number one choice, but I'd understand playing them. On the other hand, this Gsluke, I can't even say his name. It's a French-Canadian name, so it's not even Glick or whatever you would say it in American terms. The announcer said it today, and it didn't even sound remotely intelligible. But anyways, Ryan Armour there at $6,100, that group. I'm not going to go there just because of the upside, right? Ryan Armour, extremely passive. He's not very aggressive. He's a lower birdie or better percentage player for this field. Same thing with Michael Glick. Wow, he's got quite the name to say there. I'm not sure why. I heard his pronunciation today, and I know I'm trying to say it correctly, and it's like a complete tongue twister. Caleb Tran, David Skins at $6,000. They're a group I'm willing to get to. 2 Corn Ferry Tour graduates. Of course, Skins, he's a little bit older, right? So he's I believe in his 30s, and he's a rookie. Caleb Tran, a young up-and-coming ball striker. So I like the upside they bring to the table, and not going to play the Haas. Of course, father-son duo there. Just Jay Haas, you got to really worry about his upside, right? Might only make 2 to 3 birdies tomorrow. So that would mean Haas is going to have to make like 8 or 9 birdies for them to get to their ceiling. Just not something that I'm going to be counting on, to be quite frank with you guys. We'll catch up on chat down here. It looks like Nick Marr says, can Day sustain this 2011-like play? I would venture to say he's not going to do so, but it was pretty cool to see today. I remember you messaged me on Twitter. You're like, Jason Day's playing like it's 2011. He certainly was. I mean, the ball striking was there. The tee shots were there. That's pretty sweet. And Robert Bat says, what up, Luke? Go get him tomorrow. Thanks, man. Hopefully you can take him down as well. So, all right, we'll go ahead and wrap this up with a little bit of strategy. So let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll make a few lineups together and then hop on out of here. Enjoy our Friday night. So here we have the player pool for tomorrow's slate. And we're going to do our usual thing, right? We're going to make a GPP lineup. We're going to make a cash lineup together. And if there's any guys you want me to do a deep dive on before we hop out of here, just go ahead and throw them down in the chat right now. And after we go through these lineups, I'll make sure to go ahead and do so. Alrighty. So to start it off with a GPP lineup. Now, this is going to be for the large field GPP. So I'm actually for the contest on the screen, of course. Actually, no, not for this contest. This is going to be for like the 20, 30,000 entry GPP, where it's $50,000 to first. Again, you're looking to beat a ton of other people. It's not like you're in a 50 to 1,000 entry type of contest. So just understand that this build is going to be in that type of context. And of course, like I said before, trying to take 2 guys above $10,000. Maybe somebody at the top of the 9K range rather than 2 10K guys. But my favorite plays tomorrow, I'm going to go to Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa. Absolutely love their upside if they can make some putts. And for a second man in, let's go ahead and put the Sam Burns, Billy Horschel group. Love the fact that they have 2 elite putters in the same team. And of course, we have the 2 elite ball strikers up top. So if they can lean into their skill sets there tomorrow, I certainly think they're capable of taking this place super low. It puts us at around $7,500 remaining per player. Absolutely love the Zalatoris Riley group. So talked about them a little bit. I guess it was a little bit brief, but just huge birdie makers. One of the highest birdie or better percentage combinations of any team on this entire slate. Ooh, a little bit of gas there, sorry. Moving on to the bottom of the 7K range, we could probably take a guy towards the middle. We don't have to live in the complete bottom of this range. Keegan Bradley, Brendan Steele are a group that kind of draws my eye to begin. I kind of talked before about this Chris Kirk, Brendan Todd group, the fact that they have 2 hot putters there. So that would certainly be in consideration, but let's go ahead and take the Keegan Bradley Steele group. So kind of similar to the Hovland Morikawa group, they've got to find that hot putter, and they can find it. They're going to have more than enough opportunities to go ahead and cash it in. So hoping they can go and kind of try and get that magic going. We're at 6,900 for our last 2 picks. And you can see, even with taking 2 guys, above $9,900, we're not having to go way down into the 6K range. Now, if we wanted to, right? We wanted to get a little bit funky with it, take somebody down here towards like $6,300, $6,400. We could do so, right? We could put a Camilo Villegas in here, and that would let us spend up to $7,400, which, it's not going to be a huge difference between these guys at 7,100, like a Tringale and Clark, and then going up to somebody like a Chris Kirk and Brendan Todd. But if you wanted to do so, right, that's how you would do it. Now, if you wanted to be a little bit more aggressive about your plays up here, you wanted to take, let's say, a Max Homa and Taylor Gooch, rather than taking a Davis Riley and Will Zalatoris, that's when you'd have to take two guys in the 6K range, right? So it just depends on how aggressive you want to be up towards the top of your player pool there. But doing it is it's not that difficult, right? You can see there's enough guys down low that I like on the slate that you can pretty much be aggressive as you'd like. Now, the one thing I wouldn't recommend doing is being a little bit too passive. What we saw there in round one is that a lot of those groups that nobody played shot like 12 under par. And if you play all the guys at $7,500, $7,800, they're going to be like 10 to 15% owned. Not only you're going to be extremely chalky for tomorrow, you're probably not going to have those ceiling performances, at least based on what we saw from round one, right? It was readily apparent all the ceiling plays were like $6,500 and below. So just keep that in mind when you're building your lineups. You should try to be a little bit uncomfortable with the lineups that you're making, just to get access to some of those lower owned leverage plays. All right, now let's go ahead and do a single entry lineup. So in this, we're assuming it's going to be a smaller contest, maybe 1,000 entries, more likely 200 to 300 entries that you're going against. Ownership, much less of a deal here. And unlike the GPP lineup, where you want to be as aggressive as humanly possible, I'm a little bit more willing to be balanced here. Now, I'm not going to force being balanced. I'm still willing to take somebody in that 6K range, but I'm not going to force myself to take 2 or 3 guys above $9,000, right? Like I was doing in the other type of build. Now here, I like starting with a little bit of a safer pick. I think taking somebody like Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, just based on what we've seen so far, they're playing by far the best golf of anyone in the world. So they'd be the first 2 guys that have my eye on up top. Now, we want to be a little bit more balanced since this is a single entry, right? We're assuming there's a little bit of a higher dollar price tag on entering these contests. At least when I'm doing my single entries, right? It's usually my most expensive lineup is going to be my single entry lineup. So I'm trying to, make the floor relatively high, right? I just don't want to be burning money on fire or anything. So let's go ahead and take $9,100 Taylor Gooch and Max Homa. Like their upside there, and they're obviously quite a bit cheaper than going to the $9,900 Sam Burns and Billy Horschel group. So going to let us be a little bit more balanced. Love taking Zalatoris and Riley. They're one of my favorite plays on the slate. Towards the bottom of the 8K range, Tyrrell Hound and Willett are also one of my favorite groups to target. So let's go ahead and put them in there. That puts us at right around $7,000 for our last 2. So that's definitely doable, even for a single entry lineup. Like I said, I'm still willing to get into that 6K range. So let's go ahead and add one of our favorite plays here in the 7K range. We could go to the Chris Kirk, Brendan Todd group. They're probably not my favorite, but they'd be up there, right? They'd be in consideration. You could consider taking a Tringale and Wyndham Clark. Now they're going to be chalky, but because we're taking, this is a single entry, this is, a 2 to 3 max type of GBP. We don't really have to worry about ownership quite as much. So let's do that. So let's be a little bit chalky about it. Let's take the Tringale Clark group. Still okay getting there. And at $6,800 for our last man in, let's take Matthias Schwab and Doug Ghim. Like I said before, they're extremely aggressive players. They're going to go out there, make a ton of birdies. And in this format specifically, Ghim and Schwab, that's what we're looking for. So this is what I would be going with in a smaller field contest, 2 to 300 entries. Just less of a focus on ownership, right? We have an extremely chalky Cantlay and Schauffele, a relatively chalky Hadd and Willett, also a relatively chalky Schwab and Ghim because of their price tag. But I'm okay with it, right? They're all high upside plays. And because we're in a smaller field contest, I'm not as worried, I should say. I am slightly worried about ownership and duplicating, but not nearly as much as I would be for that large field contest. And now let's go ahead and focus on a cash lineup. So a little bit of a different change in perspective, of course, with cash. We're just going for pure projection, right? Just trying to get the highest projected lineup humanly possible. Not really about upside here. So in this type of circumstance, I am trying to take 2 guys above $10,000, and I'm taking the 2 groups up top. The $10,500 Cantlay and Schauffele, and also $10,200 Morikawa and Hovland. They're projected a solid 10, maybe even 15 points higher than every other group on the slate in terms of their ceiling. So guys that I like getting to there, if you're doing that, it puts us at $7,300. So we're going to have to be a little bit more well-rounded with the rest of our spots. But because the value is there, we can go to a Ghim, Matthias Schwab, who, like I said before, give you a ton of value there. We can go even a little bit cheaper, take this Seifert Lebiota group. They're also one of the highest projected plays on the slate when it comes to points per dollar. That puts us at $8,000, right? So we pretty much have all the money we need to spend here. We can go to a Danny Willett, Tyrrell Hatton, and we can finish it up with a Keegan Bradley, Brendan Steele. This type of lineup even though it has two guys in the 6K range, we have two of the highest projected plays on the slate, and it's not even close. Two of the highest projected points per dollar plays on the slate, and a Schwab and Gim and a Savert and Libiota. And rounding it off with two plays in the mid-tier range that are relatively consistent. So this is the type of lineup I'd be going with in cash. It's a little bit different than most just because we want to lock in those points up top. I mean, Cantlay and Schauffele and Morikawa and Hovland, I'm expecting them to shoot at least 10 under par tomorrow in both of them, right? So if we're going to be able to lock in that type of score, especially with some of these lower tier plays, we know they're going to get to at least like 7-8 under par rates best ball. They might not have a ceiling performance, but $6,500, $6,800, we don't necessarily need a ceiling performance, right? It's more about locking in those plays up top, being able to take guys in this mid-tier range that we have some confidence in. So that's what I'd be looking at there for cash contests. We'll catch up on chat. Looks like Nick said, so we're not worried about getting banned with this tonight. We'll see. I got messaged about it. I'm not sure the validity about the statement, but we'll see. We'll see. If someone gives me a hard time about it, I'll stop. But somebody yesterday was like, oh man, I wish I could see the lineup. It was hard to follow some of your strategy. And I get it, right? If I was just listening to somebody talk about making a lineup, not seeing them actually click in the names, being able to kind of register who's in the lineup as they're making it, it wouldn't mean nearly as much to me. So I'm kind of risking it for the biscuit, you guys. I'm a little bit of a troublemaker by nature anyways. So yeah, did it anyways. Nick, I guess we're not caring is the answer there. But that's all we're going to have here for the Showdown stream. Going to try and keep it as concise as humanly possible. It's Friday night, right? We have things to do and whatnot. Bars to get to, friends to see and whatnot. But I appreciate you guys all stopping by. Of course, hopefully your lineups are off to a decent start. Best of luck with all of your lineups this weekend, your Showdown lineups tomorrow. We will have a prize picks preview coming out later tonight. So I'm going to try and get that out as soon as humanly possible. I have things to attend to. So I'm going to try and get that up here in the next 30 minutes to an hour. So look forward to that. If that's your type of thing. Make sure you like the live stream if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't as well. We're going to have another live stream tomorrow evening. I'm going to plan for 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, of course, for round 4. And it's going to be back to alternate shot. There are going to be placement points up for grabs like per usual in round 4 Showdown. So it's going to be a very strategic stream. There's going to be a ton to consider, different format. Placement points as per usual make things a little bit complicated. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting slate to break down. But until then, like I said, best of luck. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.